In Turkish show business, every sunrise seems to bring a new surprise for those who follow the glitter and the whispers. But some days outshine the rest, not with fireworks or headlines, but with something you can feel even through a screen. Tonight's glow belongs to Barış Baktaş, and it isn't because of a chart climb or a premiere. It's because he chose music as a language, and he spoke it straight to Yağmur Yüksel. The clip appeared late in the evening, the kind of hour when the city softens and the noise fades. He sat with a guitar balanced across his lap, the room lit like a memory, lamplight pooling on the floor, shadows tucked into corners, a worn rug that looked like it had heard secrets before. The camera didn't try to perform, it simply watched. You could hear the quiet creak of the chair before the first chord, the inhale before the opening line. And then there he was, Barış, steady and unguarded, singing a melody he did not borrow from anyone else. What made it spellbinding wasn't just the pitch or the phrasing, it was where his eyes kept wandering. They drifted to Yağmur, sitting close enough to see every detail on his face, not close enough to interrupt what the song had to do. She didn't posture for the lens. She listened. Her shoulders relaxed with each verse, and when the chorus bloomed, her lips parted as if to answer, but she didn't. The glow off the lamp found her eyes and the shimmer behind them. He smiled, barely, in the way you do when a truth you've been carrying finally finds its voice. Whispers have already started their quick dance, friends of friends, stylists, the people who notice the small things, saying the song wasn't pulled from a catalog or written in a writer's room. They say Barış composed it himself, under the same light, in the same room, with the same stillness, tuning the chords until they understood him. The lyrics didn't reach for spectacle, they were simple where it mattered. Promises spoken softly, the kind that linger after the door closes. Lines about choosing someone again and again, about quiet loyalties and the calm you discover when you're in the right presence. The kind of words that don't try to impress a crowd, because they're meant to be carried by only two people at a time. You could see the words settle into her. At one point, there was that unmistakable shift, the breath that gets stuck in your chest before it becomes a tear. Yağmur blinked, and a small drop of emotion landed like a jewel on the canvas of the moment. She brushed it away with the back of her hand, a little embarrassed, then smiled that honest smile of hers, the one that fans recognize from unguarded behind-the-scenes clips. When the last chord faded, she brought her hands together and applauded softly, as if clapping too loudly might scare away the feeling they had both invited. The internet, always eager to make meaning, didn't take long to wrap its arms around the moment. Comments multiplied in minutes, the kind of thread where people don't fight, they agree. It was all there, the gentle awe, the shock of tenderness, the joy of seeing something that felt unperformed in a world that often favors performances. Many insisted you could read a whole story in the way she watched him. Others said that what he sang wasn't a tune but a message dressed as melody, a confession set to strings. Some even slowed the video down frame by frame to catch every glance, every swallow, every smile. And then, as if to sign his name to the sentiment, Barış reposted a short clip to his stories. No long paragraphs, no lyrical poem. Just one line that felt like opening a door to a private room. Some songs aren't meant for everyone, they belong to one person. The moment the sentence appeared, the flood began. Likes that arrived faster than the app could count, comments that felt like late-night toasts, blessings written with conviction by people who have never met them but swear they understand. You could almost hear the collective sigh through the screen, the way people exhale when someone says what they hoped was true. People have been drawn to their chemistry for a long time. On set, in interviews, at events where everyone is looking and they pretend not to notice, Barış and Yağmur have a rhythm that doesn't require choreography. They've shared frames and scripts and the exhausting hours that lie between call time and wrap. The fans always note the details, how he listens without interrupting, how she steadies the room when she laughs. Their bond has never looked like a stunt. It feels like the quiet thing in the center of everything else, the still water under the moving boat. After the clip settled into feeds across the country, another ping sounded. Yağmur had reposted it. She didn't over-explain or add a soundtrack to make it land. She wrote a single sentence that made the internet melt like sugar under heat, the melody that captured my heart. It didn't need punctuation. It didn't need to say his name. Everyone understood. The comments section filled with little celebrations from strangers and colleagues alike, the sort of chorus that carries a couple forward whether they wanted to or not. Within the hour, people were already crowning them the year's most romantic duo, and it wasn't because of a coordinated reveal. It was because of sincerity, the rare commodity everyone pretends to have until they're asked to prove it. We're used to red carpets and giant bouquets, to staged surprises and drone shot proposals that crash into trending lists. This was different. He didn't hire a string quartet. He didn't turn on a spotlight big enough to find from the sky. He stayed home, picked up an instrument, and told the truest story he knows how to tell in the language he speaks best. It reminded everyone watching that big love doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it walks in softly, humming a tune you recognize as your own. Later, word drifted out from people who claimed to have been there or known someone who was, those circles that keep a night glowing long after it ends. They say that after he put the guitar down and she pressed her hands together once more, the room loosened up. Friends joined them for dinner, nothing glittering, just the comforting ritual of shared plates and familiar voices. Laughter bounced lazily across the table. Private jokes were told. No one filmed that part. A friend who couldn't help it offered a description that felt like a snapshot. They looked lost in each other, in the best way, like the rest of us were just lucky to be passing through. Happy. Quiet. Full. Of course, the careful question surfaced, the one that trails any pair who glow this brightly. Are they together? Neither of them gave the press the sentence it always wants. No confirmation, no denial, no neat little bow. But even the most skeptical watchers had to admit the obvious truth. Sometimes you don't need the quote when you've heard the song. Actions can sign their own statement, and last night's melody felt like an autograph in permanent ink. By morning, the clip had traveled farther than anyone expected. It skipped across borders and languages because tenderness does that. It doesn't bother with subtitles. Fans kept sharing their favorite seconds, the way his voice drops on the last word of the verse, the moment she leans in without moving, the exact instant a smile flickers between them as if they'd just remembered the same memory. People called it one of the sweetest moments of 2025 so far, a bright thread in a year that desperately needed more softness. Whether it was a public declaration disguised as a performance or something just as precious, an offering for one person that happened to find all of us, depends on how you choose to listen. Either way, the effect was the same. It reached people in the places songs are supposed to reach but rarely do anymore. It made those who believe in romance feel vindicated, and those who don't believe pause long enough to wonder if maybe they should. There is a reason the industry pays so much attention to what these two do even when they think no one is watching. With Barış, there's a steadiness that shows up when it matters, a discipline you can hear in the way he shapes a note so cleanly you'd swear it was inevitable. With Yağmur, there's a lightness that doesn't float away, a composure that doesn't turn cold. Together, they create a kind of gravity, the kind that keeps a room from drifting apart. People who have worked with them talk about it the way people talk about good weather after a storm. You feel safe. You feel more yourself. You feel like you can stay. That's why last night didn't feel like content, even though it was consumed the way content is consumed. It felt like being allowed to stand at a doorway and listen to something not meant for us, and then being entrusted to keep it safe. Maybe that's why the comments were gentler than usual. There was less speculation and more gratitude. Less noise, more listening. In an age when everything is categorized and monetized, their moments slipped through the cracks and stayed human. Still, for those who hunger for clues, there was plenty to savor. The chord progression that rose and settled like breath. The lyric that circled the word always without ever saying forever. The way his hand trembled for just a second before finding its place on the fretboard, as if the feeling got there before his fingers did. And her, tracing the rim of a glass absent-mindedly, grounding herself in the physical world so the emotion could float and land safely. These are the things that keep fans replaying and pausing, as if repetition could let them step inside. It's easy to be cynical and say that everything like this is calculated. But if you've been watching them as long as their audience has, you know the difference between a pose and a posture. What happened last night didn't have the clean edges of an announcement. It had the soft borders of real feeling, the kind that doesn't worry about angles. If it was a confession, it was the kind whispered through a smile, offered with a tenderness that refuses applause. If it was simply gratitude, it was the kind that understands how rare it is to be seen and to be kept. And yes, somewhere in all of that, the simplest truth remains. A man sang to the woman in front of him, and the room listened. The city kept breathing. The world, for a few minutes, seemed to move more slowly, as if time had agreed to wait for the outro. You can spend a lifetime chasing moments like that. Or, if you're lucky, you can be the kind of person who knows how to make one. So where do they go from here? Perhaps nowhere but forward. Perhaps they stay exactly where they are and let the rest of us catch up. Perhaps they speak, one day, in the way the world asks them to. Or perhaps they continue to let the art do the explaining. Whatever they decide, last night will live on, saved to favorites, replayed on quiet afternoons, sent in messages that read "think of this as you fall asleep." Songs like these get woven into the private timelines of people who have never met, becoming the soundtrack to moments nobody else will ever see. For now, let the record show what really matters. Baktaş chose honesty over spectacle, a guitar over a grand stage, a room over a red carpet. Yüksel answered not with a statement but with a look you can revisit as many times as you need to. The rest is chatter, and chatter fades. But that melody, the one tailored to her heartbeat, has already found a home where even the loudest rumors can't touch it. And if you lean in closely, you can still hear it drifting, soft as lamplight and near as a hand on a shoulder, reminding anyone who listens that some feelings are truest when they're sung.